Hi guys, Aslam Khan here on part 2 of Business Studies Cambridge O-Level revision, the entire complete syllabus to learn within few minutes. So I'm going to help you learn the entire syllabus within just 6 videos guys. Please do not forget to subscribe my channel to learn with me more in future, and also notify your friends so they can learn with us in future on our channel about business studies, economics and accounting. Let's move on to question number 25. Identify and explain two ways in which being ethical. So what is ethical guys? Doing good things to the society, community, or customers, and avoiding the bad things. So it can be any stakeholders guys. I'm meaning about good image or good reputation or customer loyalty. So customers will be willing to pay higher prices, and this will also retain the amount of customers in a business. So I'm speaking about if you have a good reputation, customer loyalty, good image, you can keep your customers with you, and also you can retain them for a prolonged future. So you take Samsung and as well as iPhone as a good example. Samsung company consumers doesn't move to iPhone company. They always have a class. The reason, guys, the way they are understanding, the way they prefer that brand is because of the customer loyalty they have, because they always have some sort of reputation. Like Mac has a good reputation, Samsung has a reputation. So these people who are going beyond the reputation, they will not move towards another product that easily. So let's move on to the second thing: high demand or sales or enter new market, which can help increase revenue while selling. Yeah, selling in other countries. So when you have a good demand to your product, or when you enter into the new market, also you should be a bit ethical when you are entering these type of things. And also they're saying if you enter a new market, or if you have a high demand for your product, your sales will increase gradually. But see guys, in exams this type of question, identify and explain two ways in which being ethical, either you can treat the environment at a fair manner, charging a lower price. Customer loyalty is one ethical, or entering new market is also being ethical, because if you can give your product towards a new environment, people can consume that product. It is also being ethical. But ethical is also having some sort of good thoughts when you're doing a service trading activity. So let's move on to provide type of pricing methods. There's a few prices I have given you guys. So I'll give you these prices knowledge, because these are very much tested in your exams, and in your syllabus there's a big area on these pricing schemes. So I start with price skimming. While will reinforce brand image for its high quality product, so consumers will pay high prices. Why I'm going to take price skimming? A good example for price skimming can be Mac computers, or Mac brand, Apple brand is going to be price skimming because it has a high quality, it has a good brand image, so people will pay a high amount. So it suits with this. If you have a good brand image, good people are ready to pay a higher price. Whatever the price it moves are high, people will still pay it, because the brand is always better, and people prefer to, people who have enough income will always prefer ongoing price skimming. Second thing is competitive pricing. Second type of firm they should charge. So the price should not stop people buying this product, so less likely to lose market share. You take a bun shop, for example, a burger shop as an example. If there are a lot of street burger shops nearby, like six street burger shop nearby your house, if one burger shop is increasing the price from $5 to $6, people will move on to the place where they can get the bun for $5. So what I'm trying to say is, when you have a lot of buyers and sellers at one point, you need to go with the same price what other sellers are charging. Then the third thing is what we say, cost plus pricing. What is cost plus pricing? When you produce a product, you might incur some sort of cost. So making sure that can make a profit for each item sold, and it is easy to calculate. In other terms, you charge a price above the cost. So example, if you have a cost of, you produce a burger, you had a cost of $10. Yeah, if you had a $10, so I'm going to add a margin. Maybe all the products I should at least get 30% out of the product what I am saying. So 30% is how much? $10. 30%, you guys know how to calculate percentage guys. So $10 plus 0 point, I mean 3, will give you a value of 13. So 13 is the amount of price you should charge when it comes to market. So cost plus pricing informs that when you are charging cost to the market, you should have a pricing scheme. You add a pricing scheme and you sell to the market, so cover up your cost. It's good actually if you can cover up your cost and earn a certain percentage of profit, but this will not happen always, because when you cover your cost, there might be some people who even sell less than your cost. Then of course it's very hard to sell. So first of all, you need to see that is your product actually lower in market value, market cost, when you're charging cost plus pricing, because you need to compare with all other people around the market and come to understanding cost plus pricing is better for your company. Then it's better if you can go with that. Then we have the next pricing scheme. I always prefer penetration pricing. Is one of the best strategies for a company to enter into a market. If you really want to enter into a market, charge as lowest as possible, so you grab the attraction of the consumers, and you will try to give the products so what customers are happy. And after getting the customers for a prolonged period, you will increase the price. This I can take a good company. A good example is Huawei. You guys can see when Huawei launched its products, first it was very cheap. The same products which like Samsung was issuing, they issued for a lower cost, and they grabbed the market. They grabbed the attention of the consumers. They sold the product to people. Even I have a Huawei now, but I'm saying that actually people got happy with the prices, and they still start purchasing. After some time, when they made the brand, people love to use. Now Huawei has made its own brand, and like a brand recognition. So now they have Nova like Huawei Nova models, a lot of bit high prices, because they have grabbed the market. Then after grabbing the market, they will increase the margin after later. So as low price is more affordable for customers but would lower profit margin, after grabbing the customers, they might increase the level of prices in future. So I can write here, after grabbing the consumers, or after getting the consumers to, after making a customer relationship, what they might do, customer relationship, they might increase the price. So this is what you need to know when it comes to penetration pricing. Then we have promotional pricing, providing discounts or setting off prices, but can only be used for a short period of time. I have seen many business who are doing promotional pricing. People get into type of promotional pricing. Let me remind you guys, don't get into the trick of certain business. I'm going to give you a small example how this business does promotional pricing. Some people says that one get free offer. Sometimes they might say get one, or they might say $49.99 or something. I saw some sort of company, I don't want to mention their names. I saw some sort of company, what they used to do. Now for example, if a good shoe is at $60, okay, so what they used to do, they make this, now actual cost of this shoe was 60. So whenever you are passing by the street, you never know, you never notice this cost, because you are not interested to buy the product. But most of the women, okay, when they pass by the street, if they see the cost, and they say given 50% off, people will go into the places. So what these companies, certain small companies do, they used to make the $60 as, they will make it as 120. Okay, so they will increase the level of cost, and they will give a 50% off. So 50% off on 120. So 120, if I take 50%, guys, you guys are students who can calculate very better. So it's 60. So I will deduct the amount of discount. Now this was the cost 120. I'm going to deduct 60. So I will get how much? I will get 60, right? So now what you understood out of it, you paid the actual same price, though you got in promotion. What you might think is, yeah, I got in promotion, man, it's just $60 bucks. So you might say like that. But actually, come on, man, they have trapped you into the rule of purchasing. So promotional pricing, you need to be very careful. Certain firms can do any type of trick to get you into this. Some people will say get one free, and buy one get one free. So the same way they can do, $60 cost 60, they would have made $120, and they might give you two shoes for the one shoe you should pay. And you have actually paid for two shoes, and you pay for two shoes, and you take that towards your home. So promotional pricing is a good thing to attract customers within a short period of time, but customers should be very clear, are they getting a good scheme or not. There are certain bookstores I have seen this, they used to do that, they will say 90% off. Okay, so when you walk into these places, I don't want to say again the organization's names, so when you walk into these areas you feel like, wow man, 90% off, and when you go there inside, the books are just 30% and 20% off, and you're like, what, really? You said 90% off, why you are giving 20% off? Sir, you didn't see the board clearly. In a corner we have said limited stocks. Come on guys, you can't do that. So normally when you see a board, you can't see limited stock that particular area, and you're like, what, seriously? So you can't do that, guys. So you should be very careful when you're entering into a promotional pricing. Don't get trapped in promotional pricing scheme, but it's a good way for a firm to attract a lot of customers. So then we have learned the basics sets of pricing. I taught you what are the pricings I spoke now. Price skimming, competitive, cost plus, penetration, and promotional pricing. Now let me explain you the classification of business activity. Primary sector means what? Extracting things directly from nature for production or consumption. Secondary sector, changing the nature of production by adding some value, making the product move towards customers, is what we say tertiary sector. There's another sector called quaternary sector. I don't know is it there in your syllabus, but I saw this in economics somewhere on chapter 23. I can't remember actually the chapter. It should be on economics, Cambridge O level. So I saw quaternary is some sort of white hand jobs, educated, skilled, knowledgeable people's job like mine. Teaching is a education job, so I'm falling under quaternary sector. So let's move on to the point what we want to actually discuss. I'm going out of the context. Primary, secondary, tertiary are the three things which we need to speak. Primary sector is about you directly take the things from nature. Now, example, I'll take when I want to make a table to sell towards the market, I will take a tree, I will cut it down into pieces, and I will take the tree towards the customer. And I'll add some. Once you take from the tree, if you cut down into woods, this is what we say. Primary sector, you directly take the things from nature. So I can give you good example from nature is agriculture, and also I can give you a good example is fishing also can you directly take from the nature. How do you change the nature of production? Actually you will change the way it looks. So forestry also a part of what to say, a part of nature of production, extracting things. So changing the nature, I'll take forest as an example. Wood was the example I took. So I'm taking wood, I'm making it as a table. So I construct it into a table. Here few industries will be used, actually construction industry and also and manufacturing industry belongs to this. So because they are actually adding some value to this particular point, we said as it is a part which belongs to secondary sector. Then this table which you have made, you need to sell to the market, you need to take the product from that point towards the market area. We are taking the product towards customer. So we say it as what? Tertiary sector. Tertiary sector means what? Again, tertiary sector means you need to understand what do you guys, it's a service sector. So service sector means it can be transportation, warehousing, communications, insurance, banking, all this comes under service sector. So I can take from transportation, insurance, communication, banking, so much of things I can say, guys. Warehousing, all this belongs to what do you say, a tertiary sector. So I have given you a clear explanation how this primary sector, secondary sector, and tertiary sector actually works. So let's move on to the next 24th question. Identify two ways to measure the size of a business. What are the ways you can measure the size of a business? Actually, measuring a size of business means how you can find out is it a small business or is it a big business. Number one, sales value or value of output or revenue or income. If you have a lot of output, if you produce number of output, if it is a big company, you will produce a lot. If it is a small company, you produce less. So with that, we can identify value of capital employed. If it is a small company, you invest more. If it is a big company, you invest less. Value of balance sheet. If you have a lot of non-current assets and a lot of capital invested, it's a big company. And if it has less values on that, it's a small company. Market share, how much market you have attracted on the market. When it comes to it can be a big company or small company. Number of employees, if the employees are like 10, it is a small company. If the employees are like 500 to 1000, it might be a big company. Number of outlets, how much customers they have, how much services they get, how much outlets they have, how much branches. So with the branches you can conclude this is a big company or not. But for my concern, guys, sometimes measuring the size of the business, this area will also not be successful. Why? Because you need to understand that sometimes small companies invest more than the big companies, because it can be a niche market. You guys know what is niche market. Niche market is a specified market. They target a set of specific customer. Now you take Rolls-Royce. Rolls-Royce is not a big organization like Mercedes-Benz or Ferrari, but it's a big organization, but not to the level of like they don't have a high number of staffs, because it's all automated. So with the automation you can see that number of employees might be less when you compare to Volkswagen's group and Rolls-Royce, but actually that company is also a big company. Because why is that? They invest a lot in automation. So you can't say that because the number of employees are less, it's not a big company. So you might have questions in exams, the why measuring the size of the business is not appropriate, or give two ways why these are not appropriate. They might give certain questions, and you should be very sticking, like when it comes to number of employees, why it can't be appropriate. So you should be able to give the exact answer as I gave. So then we move on. Identify, explain two methods of lean production. People need to understand what is lean production, guys, first of all, before we move on to the next point. So actually, guys, when it comes to lean production, it's very simple. Lean production is cutting down its cost. Okay, so it cuts its cost. It reduces its wastage. So reduces the wastage. But what does it do? It increases the quality. Wastages, and it increases the quality. So that's what you need to know when it comes to lean production. It actually reduces the wastage but increases the quality. So what are the ways you can increase your quality? There are two things they are given in your syllabus: Kaizen or continuous improvement. Kaizen is a technique which is used by Japanese people. Those companies, they say that whenever you produce something, you need to always improve. So less reduction in wastage. If you can reduce the value as much as possible, then of course you can you can reduce the wastage as much as possible. Your quality will increase. The more quality increases, the more you can sell to the market. That's what it says. So when making computers, continuous improvement should always be there, because software development, but still Windows are always available in all the computers most of the time. So the Windows package also should improve sometimes. So just in time is another thing which you need to do. Many people doesn't understand what is just in time, guys. Just in time is something like you don't have the resource at your place, but when you need, you will order. Actually, you will not have a warehouse to keep the stocks. Now if I want to sell, okay, I have a power bank in my hand, guys. So if I want to sell a power bank, I will not hold, maybe I will hold 200 power banks actually to sell that, but I will not hold 2 million power banks, because I think I don't get orders that much. So what I will do, I will not have a warehouse for that. Particularly, I'll know a supplier who is nearby, and I will call him and say him, there's 200,000 orders, can you bring and give to my place. The good thing in just in time, you will not have a warehouse to maintain these power banks, and theft will not take place. Your holding cost is not actually there, but the bad thing is you will have an ordering cost. Ordering cost means the transport expense you might incur when you're bringing the product towards your premises. So you need to be careful on bringing that product towards your premises. In between, if that supplier couldn't bring that due to breakdown, or if it delays it, then of course again it will be a problem for you. Then we have the next thing: reorganized layout to help improve efficiency. So they might feel that if they really want to increase the lean production to reduce the wastages and increase quality, they might reorganize layout. The way how the way should work should be given to each department. Which department should do certain activities can be also taken as lean production. So but mainly tested areas are Kaizen and just in time. Just in time is a very important layer of understanding you should be able to get before you move on to the part of exams. So let's move on to 20. Yeah, there's another thing we said as self production or autonomous team. So self production means you are dividing the work between certain teams, and you will give the work for each team and ask them to complete the work properly. So each team will go through the process and they'll finish it off that work. It's a good thing because whoever who is doing mistake in that sale, particularly if I'm going to give a tailor-made suit, like 20 tailor-made suit, cutting department, sewing department, and also finishing department, so much department I can make, and each department will be given certain tasks. So once the product has a mistake, I can go and ask which department has actually done the mistake, so I can divide it and give to make themselves improve in specialization also. So let's move on to the next part. Identify two possible benefits of improving efficiency. What are the good things if you can improve the level of efficiency? So what is efficiency? Minimizing wastages, again maximizing the resources usage is what we say efficiency. So there are two ways you can increase the efficiency. One is reduce the average cost. If the business cost decrease, the business will have enough income to grow. The business profit will ensure the stability due to lower cost. So what they are trying to say is when it comes to reduce average cost, if the business cost decrease, if you can reduce the level of cost of a business, you can have income to grow. These are the benefits you need to have, and your business profit will make your business to move very stable due to your lower cost which are increased. If you can again take maximum use of your resources, improving efficiency, they are saying another thing you need to know, less mistake, improving reputation due to less mistake, as the quality of the products will be up to standard and resource wastage of the organization can be controlled. If you do less mistake, you can increase the quality and also increase the standard, so people will buy your products very faster, I mean more than the competitors. So moving on to the 27th question, there's another question. It speaks about, do you think there are more opportunities than threats of globalization? There are more opportunities as well as threat. I can't say always threat is not there. Globalization means the whole world getting towards one point to do transaction is what we say globalization. So if I purchase a, now this is one of my mic cover. If I'm purchasing a mic cover from Alibaba.com, if I'm going to purchase, what I need to do, I'm getting connected through the internet source to the whole world. That's what we say globalization. So able to export more or access to wider markets or more sales helps spread risk. These are the opportunities. Cheaper labor or materials such as glass, which could lower total cost. Easier to relocate to other countries like its competitors. You can move from one place to another. That's what we say, relocate. So relocate. Become better known or build brand image. Increased competition from computers could result in lower sales revenue, loss of employees to other companies, or wider pool of potential employees. So they're saying that there are good things also when it comes to globalization. You might build your brand image, you can move to a different area, you can get new customers. But on the bad side, you might see political influence, language barriers, cultural barriers, which I have not spoken here. And also they have said you will feel like your employees might move to a different country because they will recruit by giving a good salary to these people. So you need to be very careful when you're answering this type of questions. Then we have question number 28. What is meant by limited company? As I explained you, if your company is giving unlimited liability, when the company does some losses, the company will not bear more losses. That's why we say limited company. And also it is what is a separate legal identity. So if you take, as you all know guys, Tom Cruise is one of the famous actor in world. If he shows a beauty product, a cosmetic product, maybe a shampoo or something, and it's so better for a person to use, we will use by seeing Tom Cruise is using actually on the media, so we will get attracted and we will use the product. But when we use the product and if we get affected by using the product, we will not sue the Tom Cruise, we will sue that particular company, because it is saying limited company is not going to sue that particular person, we will sue that company. That's what we say. Suing the company instead of the owners, we say them as separate legal identity status to its owner. So owner and the business is different. So when owner has promoted the product, but complaint will be borne by the business, not the owners, guys. So it will be very very good in understanding these points, guys, when you are learning your business O level exam. So let's move on to the next part, 29th part. identify and explain two advantages of having part-time employees. I've seen this always in certain questions. Why do you want to have part-time employees? Now these are all my just my concerns. This can be tested on your paper 1 and paper 2. I'm sorry, I should have uploaded this video a bit more, because now I think today you might have your paper 1, but this can be still helpful for your paper 2, because these areas can be tested. So why do you want to have part-time employees? There are two people. One is full-time, you keep that person from 8 to 5 o'clock work, and part-time employee who is going to work maybe after night shift, or he might come only on certain days and start working. So why a part-time employee is good? More flexible. He's all ready to he's okay to work in a very extending hours, and business will be able to find it easy to manage the business. So if you can pay him a small amount, still he will make the he will work, because he's not getting a full time, but still he's getting some sort of amount from your business. When not working, no need to pay wages. If he comes to work only, you pay him wages. If not, you don't pay him. The business can save income when the employee does not work, and the business pays only the work carried by employer. So business will not the business can save income. So when employees doesn't come to work, the business will have some income. But the moment employees take leave, the business will save that money. So as I spoke, primary research, you need to know what are the type of primary research I have given. Questionnaire, lower response rate, relatively cheap. It's like you have like one-to-one questions, and you ask about. Now for example, if you guys are on roads and I ask, how is this movie? Do you think this movie is good? And do you think the movie is bad? But in this, actually, the customer, I mean, the person who watched the movie want to speak bad about the actress or actor, but you never ask that question. So you will miss what the customer wanted to speak, because they are answering your questions. Survey cheat method, easy to collect. Responses may not reach target audience. You will run out certain surveys, and you will find out are they working correctly, but it will not always reach the whole market. So you will not be able to generate the information what you need. Interview is like one to one, you face to face, and you complete the questions, and you collect some data, like qualitative data. Interview bias. So what is interviewer bias? Sometimes again, the interviewer will ask some unrelated question, not related to the interview. So and the interviewer should also be very experienced to get the correct answer from the other opposite person. Then we have interview focus group of people familiar with the product. As I said on the previous video, I have given about a small good example on that product, on that particular area. Consumer panel, randomly selected group of people, opinions gathered, relatively expensive to carry out. So what is this consumer panel? You set a select of people. You ask them to consume the product, and you ask them is this product is good or not. So focus group is also similar like that, but you can advertise the product with them. You have already taken them as an example, as I took on last video the models for a certain cosmetic product, so they can be related to the company. So you will ask them to come and speak about the product, and ask them question what are the areas we should improve. Observation, observation. I remember when I did my CIM, Chartered Institute of Marketing. I remember my lecturer taught me something. Observation is also known as mystery shopping. Like these people will come into a firm, and they might ask deliberately certain questions from the employees. And if employees neglect these questions, the person who has been trained will complain about this employee towards the management. Example, we'll take a company like Panasonic. Okay, guys. So Panasonic's director is sending an employee towards Panasonic's showroom and asking, does the employer is working? I mean, the employer is he's just seeing that his employees are working or not by sending a person. And the person will ask, hey, how much is this TV? Hey, how much is this fridge? So you are like, if the manager says, you have the tagline, please go and see that. Can you see that? I have already put. Can't you read it? Are you dumb? If they speak in this way, the trainer will actually go and say about the behavior, so that manager will be fired the moment, because for them, the image is always important. So they should always have an eye on what the employees are doing. So let's move on to the next part. Identify and explain two sources of finance a business could use for its expansion. Or what is a source of finance, guys? Let me explain you in easy way. A source of finance can be either internal source of finance, other one is we say the external source of finance. Internal source of finance mean these source of finance can be used to collect money within the organization. External source of finance, you go outside the organization and collect some finances. So here I have given certain examples of collecting the finances from the people. Number one, bank loan repaid in monthly installment, interest charged. So if you are taking a bank loan, it's very easy. I'm giving certain this identification a small explanation, guys. So you can pay it in monthly installment, very less interest when it comes to a big loan, and you can get the money. But the bad thing is you can't take money easily. You need to show collaterals. Collaterals are certain documents, certain houses or certain building belongs to something you should provide. You can get bank loan that easily you can't take. Issue more shares to family and friends. No interest charge, doesn't need to be prepaid. Original owners may lose some control. So actually issue more shares to family members mean you can increase the level of money from the family, but the thing is they will not charge interest from you. They have invested, but the bad thing is they will ask a return on income for the investment they have made, and also you might lose some control when you are running the business. Then issue shares to public by becoming a public limited company. Now the bank loan is a external source of finance. Issue more shares to family is an internal source of finance. Issue shares to public is an external source of finance, because you are taking money from outside by becoming a public limited company. No interest paid, not prepaid, potential for takeover. So the moment these people, when you are taking share issue, it is we say it as you are taking the money from outside. The moment you are taking from the owners of the company, it is becoming internal source of finance. So actually, no interest paid means you don't. When you take the money, you give them the ownership, but you don't pay interest. It is not prepaid and potential for takeover. If someone is taking a lot of shares from your company, they might even take over the whole entire company after some time. Debentures is like a long-term loan a company can ask from the investors, whoever investing in that company. The investors will get a specific amount of money every month, a fixed interest you will be providing for the amount they have given to your company. Needs to be repaid after a certain period of time, maybe 2 years or 5 years later. You should be able to pay back the money you had taken from these investors. Hire purchase is like no initial payment required, not owned until final payment made, paid in installments, interest charge. Hire purchase and leasing almost goes along with the same phase, because you pay when it comes to leasing, you pay a installment, you pay a higher amount and you get the product. But when it comes to hire purchase, you don't pay an initial amount. You can pay every installment, but after paying the installment with interest, you will be able to get the product. But leasing says that you doesn't have the equipment actually. A repair is not paid by the people. Yeah, it's not by yeah, repairs not paid for by, you can write you can know it as lessor or lessee. So these are two people who are involved in leasing. So I'll erase this part, guys. It's not important to know this, so I'll cut this down actually. So this is not important. So the repairs not paid by the lessor, because if the lessor, now there are in leasing there are three type of leasing, guys. Finance lease, operating lease, and sales and lease back. In your syllabus we speak about finance lease. So actually repair should be paid by the person who is using the asset, which is lessee. Okay, so maybe more expensive in the long run, because you might take a asset but you need to pay an interest for the asset you have taken. Then we have yeah, sale of assets. You might sell the things what you have already owned. This is what we say in terms of the finance. So no repayment needed, may not raise sufficient finance, takes time to sell assets. Return profit, again the company's money you have gained for a long period of time. No need to repay if no interest to pay. Shareholders may not be happy as dividend payment over. So actually return profit is like the money you have kept with the company to expand. So if you are going to expand with the money, it's a good thing. You don't want to pay anyone, you don't want to pay interest to pay for anyone. Again, shareholders might not be happy, because the profit what shareholders need to get, you are taking those money and investing in future. So I explained you source of finance completely, how internal source of finance and external source of finance work. So let's move on next question. Identify two features of a sole trader in a business. A sole trader falls under unincorporated company. Unincorporated company means he has unlimited liability, and this is the term unincorporated company speaks about. He has unlimited liability, and also he has no separate legal identity. So if he sells some sort of product to the environment, to the consumers, he should be charged, not the entire business. That's what it says. So he keeps all the profit, is his feature. He's having unlimited liability. Someday he might sell his own assets to pay the loans what he has taken. Unincorporated or no separate legal identity. No separate legal identity means what? You and your owners actually like you yourself and the ownership both are yourself and the business both are the same. So owner and the business is not different. When you sell a product, you are the one who is representing your business. Takes all decisions, so own boss works for himself herself, has total ownership of business or full control, few legal requirements. I'm also a sole proprietor, guys. I'm very happy because I work on the time where I feel comfortable. I work whenever I can, and that is going to pay me a good amount. So let's move on to the point we want to discuss now. Question number 33. 33 is identify two main sections of a business plan. What is business plan? Whenever you plan something to start a business, you should have a plan. What are the things a business plan will cover? It's very straightforward. Let me read these things. Executive summary, business aims or targets or vision statement or objectives, marketing or any element of mix, pricing, product, price, promotion, market research or competition or market analysis, financial example, cash flow forecast or budgets, human resources or number of employees or skills needed, production details, organizational or management details, example structure, type of business, name and location of business. So what you need to understand when it comes to the main sections of a business plan, like executive summary is the basic definition, basic understanding what this company is all about, aims, targets, vision, mission, vision statement. So vision is like within 5 years of time, within the entire time period, where what's your final goal, is what we say vision. Actually, within the 50 years of time or 60 years of time, what you will be. Targets and business aims are short-term objectives of company. Will set marketing, like marketing has four element: mix, price, product, price, place, promotion. So what type of element mix you have utilized when it comes to these products in the market. Then you need to understand one thing, like financial market research or competition or market analysis. How do you do market research? What ways you have done to attract consumers? What are the financial money value you have in your business? What products you are going to produce, and how you are going to organize it? Do they organizational management have a structure? Whatever business they have, how is the what is the name and location of the business should be also given in a business plan. What is meant by a cash flow forecast? An estimate of cash inflows and outflows of a business, usually on a month by month basis, or estimate of timings and amounts of cash inflows and outflows for a given period of time over months to come. So cash flow forecast says that how much money your business will make within a certain time period, like how much inflows will come to the business in future, and how much money it is going to outflow, like how much money it's going to spend in future will be targeted within a particular period of time. If you said, we say it as cash flow forecast. So let's move on to the easiest, it's very easy, guys. Let's move on to the next part. So you see, guys, I say JSF. These are all past papers. That's the reason I have taken it as JSF. When you are doing past paper, you will see the same things which will be tested in certain areas. So let's move on to the topic what we want to discuss. Question number 35 says that identify and explain two reasons why training is important. So why training is important? Number one, increase motivation. Employees will feel like they are in the company, they know what they are doing, so they will feel that morale will be there. Okay, we should do something to the company because company is giving us a lot from our side. So could lead to increased efficiency, reduction in wastage, but the productivity, company's output is increasing, or the organization tends to increase. This also ensures the morale of the employees is set to achieve targets. So morale means it is a motivation which makes the employees inner happy to work with the organization. Fewer customer complain, as they are given good training, they will make less mistakes, so your sales will be high. Less customer complaints will lead to high sales, and this will increase the trust among the customers. Question number 35 was that simple, guys. Identify two features of a growing economy. Why do you think that growing economy is growing? Due to few things, as I spoke on the first video, the objectives of economy. So if you can speak the same objective, but now in a way of feature, you're going to get the same marks. Low unemployment or more jobs created, more business opening or improved business confidence, or increased capital investment, higher living standards, or more disposable income, or rising income, or increase in demand sales, high rates of economic growth, or increase in GDP, or level of output increases, increased tax revenue, higher business profit, high inflation, or higher prices. Now, what you need to understand when it comes to growing economy, if you can lower your unemployment, if you can create jobs, your country is doing good as much as possible. If you can give more business opportunities and business confidence, again your country is doing much better when it comes to environment. Higher rates of economic growth or increase in GDP. So if you can produce more of the product on the market, is also a good thing your country is doing when it comes to growing. High living standard means people have enough income to satisfy themselves like basic need, and the basic like needs and stuffs like clothes, food and water and shelter. And when it comes to more disposable income, people have enough income even after spending on their basics, they have some sort of left income to save or to spend. And rising income, increasing demand, increased tax revenue, government is getting a lot of income from the people, it's also a good thing. High business profits, so profit will increase for business. High inflation or higher prices. So high inflation or high prices means the country is moving towards the economy, producers will try to charge a high amount among the consumers. So let's go on to 37th question. Explain two ways in the business in which the business could respond to environmental pressures. So if you have any environmental pressures, how do they actually it's not pressure group, guys, but it's a legal order from the government. So order from the government, like most of the time, how to ensure that they are not going to harm the environment. So what they are doing, they can do few things. Provide recycling facilities. A business should be able to reuse, reduce and recycle the product to ensure the efficiency and to avoid environmental pressure. So if they can reuse the product what they sell, or like you see certain food cities, they give food supermarkets, they used to give a bag when you carry, so you can reuse again and again, and reduce the same bag. When you come with the same bag to that particular place, they'll give a small discount on the product, maybe a 10 rupees reduction. So people will get motivated and they will bring that or 10 rupees or $1 reduction. Reduce the level of misusing the environment, you should reduce it. Recycle. If you make a can, if you can again and again make another can from that, same thing we said as recyclable. Then the next part, buy supplies in smaller amounts. Buying only what's important to complete the production, not avoid waste. Don't buy a lot, buy what is necessary for your production. That also will increase the level of environmental pressure. Let's move on to next part. Identify two fixed cost. What is fixed cost? Fixed cost, guys. It's a type of cost which doesn't change along with the activity level. Activity level means the more you produce, the more your fixed cost won't change. The fixed cost is going to be very fixed. The cost is not going to change even though you produce 1 unit, 10 unit or 100 unit, 1000 unit is going to be the same. So rent or rates, utilities like electricity, gas or water. Why it is being fixed cost? Because for a particular area, they all know that this is the, like, if a company can produce only 1000 units every month maximum, then they know the maximum electricity value. Insurance every year, how much they are going to pay for the particular premises. Salaries or cost of office employees, like every month they are going to get the same salary. If it is an increment based on piece rate, like the more they produce, the more they get paid, then of course it becomes a null. It can't be the correct way. Loan repayments or interest charges. When you pay a loan or when you repay a loan or when you get an interest, then of course fixed cost becomes when you fix like you will know how much you are paying interest in future, so it will become also a part of fixed cost. And storage cost, like warehouse cost, how much you need to pay rent for that warehouse is also a part of fixed cost. So let's move on to next part. In cost, guys, in total cost, I'll teach you when it comes to like third or fourth video this in detail. Total cost has two parts, as fixed cost and variable cost. I spoke about fixed cost. Now variable cost is a type of cost which changes along with the activity. The more you produce, the more cost it will increase. So I will explain you again a bit deep in the next upcoming videos, guys. So let's move on to 39th part. Identify and explain one advantage and one disadvantage to business of using job production. Again, clearly under my playlist, you can see types of production. I have uploaded this video. This will be very helpful for you guys when you can review it. So advantages of job production. There are three types of production, guys: job production, batch production, and flow production. Job production is where you produce a product to satisfy one particular customer. A batch production is a group of customers, like a school uniform can be a good example. And a flow production, you make a one product to the entire market, like Coca-Cola will be sold to the entire market. That's what we say, job flow production. So here I'm speaking about one person satisfying one particular customer. Now, for example, if a bride comes to make herself a makeup, so the makeup artist should be able to make a good, should be able to make a good, beautiful face, and she should understand what actually the lady needs. So that's what we say advantages. So you need to meet exact customer needs for its clocks. So you understand their timing and you should give what they need. Workers less likely to make mistakes as employees are skilled. They are good. They know what they're actually doing, so they'll do less mistakes. More varied work leads to high motivation. So your work is like really varied from what you should do, but helping retain existing workers. So helping retain existing workers means like yeah, help retain existing workers. I mean, if you can do the same thing for a long period of time, you can keep your employees with you, and that the employees will be satisfied because they are doing great on what actually they are doing. Can charge a high price because you are good in the market. You will charge a very high price and very flexible with the customers. Whatever they say, they will listen to it. And disadvantages: no economies of scale when buying raw materials locally. Production can take longer or slow or low output, leading to problems when exporting. So no economies of scale means you are not buying in bulk, so you will get less. The cost will be very high, and production can take longer because if a person comes walk into your place and asks, "I want a private jet," a jet cannot be prepared in a day. It takes a lot of time. Low output leading to problems when exporting. So when you are exporting, you can't export as you expected, then also it will be a problem to you in future. Then we have skilled laborers can cost more, so can lead to high fixed cost. Actually, skilled labor should be paid a higher salary, so it will be actually a disadvantage to the company. Costs are higher as it is often labor intensive, so may not be able to find 30. Not now again, guys. This is related to case study, so don't write this 30 employees. I have taken this one from past papers. As I said, I'm reviewing almost a 10-year past papers, and I have found what will come to your paper. It's just a estimation of what will be tested on exam. So I'm giving a quick revision to learn the syllabus very faster. So that's the reason, guys, you are seeing certain questions from the past papers. Mistakes can be expensive to correct as each job is different. So you might see, it's very hard to correct the mistake because once they are done, you should give to the customer. If the customer doesn't take, then of course it will become a cost to you in future. With the last content, yeah, so this is the last question I'm going to speak now for second video. I think yeah, I'm done with the second podcast. I already have explained you 39 questions which will be tested for exams. We are almost done, guys. So what you need to understand, guys, just watch these videos before going to exams. Inform your friends. It's free of charge. I'm revising you the entire syllabus. I'm teaching you the exact past papers which can be tested. I'm going with past paper questions. I'm revising your knowledge, guys. So you will not learn better than this. So please inform your friends. Make these videos reach your potential people. This channel is meant to contribute to students who cannot pay fees for learn Cambridge, guys. So let's work harder for exams. See you guys on another video. Please do not forget to subscribe my channel to get my third video updates. See you guys on another video.